Hi guys, welcome back to She-Hulk, episode 5, thoughts and discussions, and we'll be also doing the mid-season review today. So, my god, we're halfway through the season.
Hard to
We're
believe.
halfway through the season, and the season hasn't started.
To be honest, you are completely correct. The 5 episodes in, and we've yet to have a proper start.
And when I say season hasn't started, I mean I'm just not interested in the show at all. They keep throwing stuff at us, and yes, someone will argue, yeah, things are happening. Look, we saw how she turned into She-Hulk, and she's now got a job, and she lost her job as well, and she's being attacked by people with a needle that is not strong enough to break the Hulk's skin. Why have they not been able to make this interesting?
I just don't think they care.
I just think they're terrible writers. I have to be honest.
That's also very true.
I've never been in a scenario where I've had to really bash the writers this much, but I just really feel like the people who have been commissioned to do this job do not understand what they're taking on. They don't know how to write a court scene. They don't know how to make superheroes interesting. They don't know how to make superheroes interesting.
I know. It's really sad. In fact, the worst part of it, from where I'm looking, is that I don't think you need to spend a huge amount of money to make this interesting. So therefore, for a show that has spent so much money, how they cannot have made it at least bearable.
Yeah. You know, there's that law of diminishing returns, that the more you spend, the less you get back. I have no returns. It's like I spent, and then they continue to take my soul and life from me as well.
Well,
it's like a loan shark.
Well, they've obviously decided that they're trying to get blood out of a stone, and we are the stones.
Yeah, gosh. I mean, okay, there's much that we can talk about the show itself, but let's at least get through what we want to get through today, which is episode 5. So, last episode, if you remember, what happened was Wong was fighting demons in the middle of a theatre with Wong was fighting demons in the middle of a theatre again with Donny Blaze being some sort of magician who's managed
terrible magician.
Musician.
I know. Maybe thank God he didn't play any music.
A magician who took his sling ring home from Carmitage
after 1 week.
And as always, Jen, the brilliant attorney, managed to solve this by threatening him outside of court. So, episode 4 finishes with Jen being served this notice that she doesn't have the trademark or copyright for her own name, She-Hulk. And episode 5 we start. So the episode is called Ribbit and Rip It Script. Oh no, script is just the end. Ribbit and Rip It is the name of the episode. I don't know how that relates to what happens in the episode. But we start with the recap, as always, which takes up 3 minutes of the episode. And then we start with a title screen, which is kind of like a commercialized fashion advert, I'd guess you'd call it, for some sort of perfume or fragrance, which is by Titania. And it says,
the villain from the first episode, where at the end, where
social media angry lady.
Yeah. So she is the lady who, at the end of the first episode, gets She-Hulk known because Jen, the character Jen, changes into She-Hulk in order to protect a jury.
Yeah, and she punches her across a courtroom, and for some reason, her attacking a courtroom and potentially the jury of the courtroom, she manages to get off with this scot-free. And she's running her own brand, which is massive, and she's got millions of followers. So it starts with the advert. Strength is beauty. Beauty is strength. What makes you beautiful? She-Hulk by Titania. Be strong, be beautiful. Own who you are. She-Hulk by Titania. I am strength. I am beauty. I own who I am. She-Hulk by Titania. A luxurious new line of skincare, beauty and wellness products created by Titania exclusively for you. She-Hulk by Titania. I do feel like I should get some money for just reading that out, but because I did it better than the show did.
Yes, you did.
But yes, she's got this line that she's created. We've seen the advert. there's big billboards on Sunset Boulevard when Jen is driving through the city,
Yeah, to work.
and she can see that her name is being commercialized and used in a way that she's not profiting from, and she's unhappy because someone is taking her name. Now, there's a good argument with this episode because all we've been talking about, well, I say all we've been talking about, one of the things we've been talking about for the last few episodes is she keeps saying she doesn't want to be called She-Hulk anyway. And as soon as someone says, I'm going to use the name She-Hulk, she's suddenly very angry and unhappy about this. But I guess we have to go down the road of, she was initially unhappy that she was called She-Hulk because it's a derivative name of her cousin who she is not a fan of, or she is a fan of, who knows what their relationship is. And now she's accepted the name and she's happy to be the She-Hulk character. So, we see Jen in her own house, and Ched, God, what a name, Ched, her cousin, brother? What is he? One of her family members.
Brother. I think it's a brother, but where did they come up with these names? And maybe this is a normal name in parts of America, but
the name is a derivative of Chad. So,
yeah.
So just as She-Hulk's a derivative of Hulk, maybe he's a derivative of something else. But Ched sort of blasts into the room through the door, which she has not locked because... Why? She was attacked by many men in an alleyway.
I know.
Remember when her dad...
The whole thing is,
Yeah.
Again, it's so contrived. Basically, it's almost as though we want to get through this scene quickly. Chad arrives, and as you're about to say, he's trying to get her to
Well, I mean,
divorce
let's just get through Ched getting through the door, because remember the episode before when her dad said, "Here's all these locks and cameras that you might need to protect yourself," and just a standard human could just blast through the door of her apartment.
Yeah, without key, without anything. It's
So
crazy.
it is amazing. But then I guess Jen did say to her dad that she's She-Hulk and she doesn't need any of this stuff. So there you go. So Ched blasts through the door. He says, "Yo, what's up, Jen?" And then she says, "You can't just walk into my house." Well, obviously you can, because she has no security whatsoever. And he says exactly what we just said. "What do you want me to tell you? I just did."
Yeah.
I just did. And he said, "I'm making a killing selling these signed She-Hulk products. They love you. The people love the She-Hulk. So I need your John Hancock for me." And she says, "I'm not signing those." And he says, "What do you mean? I'm supporting your business venture." At which point she clarifies that it's not her business venture. This woman named Titania has trademarked her name. And he says, "That's dumb. Why would you let her do that?" And she says, "I didn't let her, Ched." And then he says, Jen, the way the trademark works is whoever gets there first gets it. So if you would have done yours first, she wouldn't have been able to do that." And Jen is unhappy at this. And I think at this point, I was bored by the episode.
By this point, I must admit, the whole thing is so pathetic. The driving through to work and seeing all these billboards, and you would like to think that they would have something behind it, but there wasn't anything behind it. As you're expecting something to happen.
The thing is,
really happens.
This line was given to Ched to give to her as a look at this guy who's mansplaining to her. He's teaching her what a trademark is, and
something
she's
that she's
angry
been
at it.
and apparently this is something she really hates people doing.
But why do they need to do this? This is the thing. They have this opportunity. This same line that would have been delivered by Nikki, her best friend, would have actually been humorous, because it would have shown some banter between them. But now it's Ched, who no one really cares about, who just comes in and mansplains to Jen and says, "This is what you need to know, lady." And then she has to sit there and accept it and feel frustrated by it. Whereas if Nikki had frustrated her with that comment, we would have at least said, okay, there's a bit of back and forth between these characters. It builds their relationship. They can, make jokes between each other, which is what friends do. You don't just have friends who are only supportive and never, make fun of you. And there have been times in previous episodes where Nikki has said things like, "Oh, your dating life," and all this sort of stuff. But I think that this is a line that would have helped develop a relationship if done within two different characters, rather than develop a relationship between Ched and Jen, where Jen is just seen to see, we just see Jen as looking at Ched and thinking he's an annoying character. Because in the second episode, it was about how he got a job and she lost his job. She'd lost her job,
Yeah.
even though she's far more successful than he is. And now, it's like, yes, he's still an idiot, but he feels like he can tell Jen whatever he wants.
I think that you're right to say those things, but one of the things that sort of comes across to me, and again, this is just poor writing. The previous episodes have set out the character of Jen as being a really clever lawyer, and here we have a situation where a person who she doesn't actually think is particularly clever is outthinking her, and that doesn't even make sense. You would in previous episodes, when people were saying things that were not quite correct regarding the law, she would say, no, that's not right. All of a sudden here, she just kind of accepts it, and it's just stupid, because the reality is she should have the wherewithal to challenge that comment that he made, and that would then lead quite well into the next scene. But no, she can't. It's almost as though she has no... it's almost like she hasn't got any wherewithal, any intelligence. So it goes against everything she's been saying that she is, which then makes a mockery of the character.
Yeah, it's just, anyway, so moving forward, moving forward, the next thing that we see is Jen basically going to find Titania. She's following her on Twitter because she wants to know where she is. She's kind of stalking this person that she is hated by. And she takes Nikki with her to this mall, as they call it in America.
Yeah.
It's a shopping market.
Shopping centre, yeah.
Shopping centre. So she takes her there. There's a big queue outside. And Nikki says, we're not going to wait in line. And they just enter the mall. And they're looking around and they're seeing all these products. And they're seeing, snake venom lip plumper, and beauty serum, and beauty oil, and beauty tonic. And they're all kind of the same thing bottled in a different way. And there was a line in here that I liked, which said, she's literally selling snake oil.
Snake oil, yeah.
Which I thought was a nice little line.
Yeah.
It didn't add much to...
It actually says a great deal about the fact that her friend was interested in that stuff.
Yeah.
So what does that say about your friend who's interested?
But she's portrayed as that sort of person. She's a little bit ditzy, fashionable. She is supportive, but she's not necessarily someone who thinks too much for herself. She tends to get herself in odd situations here and there. As we'll see later in the episode. But so they see all these things. They've kind of back up what we already know, which is that Titania is not selling legit products. She's a snake oil salesman and all these sorts of things. And they come to the line, and there she is. Titania's in the middle of her desk while people are taking photos with her and getting signatures. And she says, "I'm so sorry, little child, but the line starts way back there." And this is the first time that we really see them talk to each other, don't we?
It is.
So there's been a lot about, we know there's something going on between them in the first episode, and then we kind of hear that she's been freed from jail, and now she's got this lawsuit against her. But this is the first time that we see them meet and talk. And Jen says, "You're using my name to sell your trashy products, and you're suing me?" And Titania says, "Get over it, Jennifer. The name She-Hulk is mine." In a very Valley Girl accent she's gone for. Jamil.
Yeah, one of the things that I really do not like about this episode is the actress playing Titania was really good, I thought, in The Good Place. She was fantastic in it. I thought that, and they've kind of taken her. They know, it's almost as though the director or the writers said, right, we've got this great actress. She was really good in A Good Place. She can play this type of character. And they've dumbed it down to... her face has all the glitter on it. It's like they've taken a bucket of glitter and said, put your face in there. That's what people do. And it's just... there's zero believability in anything that she says or does. Yeah. And it just diminishes the whole thing. So it's almost like the whole thing is just so... pathetic.
Looks-wise, of course, we know that they've gone for a particular look, like an Instagram model, fashionista sort of thing, playing a larger-than-life character, I guess, where lots of people follow her. The thing is that it's not really the accent that's getting me. It's more the words that they're choosing to make her speak. And it seems like they're going for a very superficial, low-level villain. I guess that's what I'm
I just
thinking about. I'm not thinking about any complexity behind that character. It just looks like they've said, can you play a sort of
exactly
egotistical lady who thinks she's the center of the world? And
They've come up with the character in the first episode, and they actually don't know what to do with it.
yeah, is the
They don't know what to do with
is
it.
the writers again? It's the exact same thing that it was before. Remember in episode 3, I believe it was, maybe 4, episode 4, Madison.
No,
Remember
God,
Madison?
Yeah, come up with the character, don't know what to do with it.
Have
It's just,
Do you agree that the Titania character is very similar to Madison? In fact, that she's a bit obnoxious, just kind of thinks she's the center of the world, speaks a certain way.
I think that what happens is these writers have decided, or it might be the director, who knows, it could be anybody, but they've decided that if you want somebody who's either a villain or somebody who's not particularly a hero, this is how we portray them.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it really does seem like there's a robot churning out. This is
Yeah.
what the bad guys need to be like.
It's just
Which is
terrible.
strange because actually, if you look at the first 3 phases of Marvel, there was always something. I mean, for the most part, there was something interesting about the villain. It wasn't just a standard bad guy.
The Russo brothers who did the Avengers and all this kind of stuff, I mean, they were clever guys. And if you look at their films, they do, even the villains end up drawing you in.
Yeah.
They draw you in.
Either through the
because
acting or through the
and
actual
also through
complexity.
their backstory,
Yeah.
through the way they try to go about something, they draw you in. Here, you're sitting, hoping for a really good 20 minutes of entertainment, and you're not really drawn in. It's almost repulsive, and that isn't that it works against the story. And this whole thing in the I've been thinking about this episode in terms of what did we achieve. If you actually think about what we've said, you could just go from here's the writ, you're being sued, straight to the courtroom, and everything you've seen up to now doesn't help at all in the story.
Absolutely.
It can just be cut out,
Absolutely.
left on the cutting floor, and you wouldn't have lost anything.
Yeah. I think about this. So let's say you take episode 1 with the ending where she punches Titania,
Yeah.
and in that ending, she's just being a lawyer for a firm, isn't she?
Yeah.
So you could assume that she's actually with the firm GLK&H that she's already at, and you cut out episode 2, 3, and 4, bar the last minute of episode 4 where she opens the door and she's getting sued for her name.
Yeah.
If you did episode 1 with that bit just joined and you cut out everything in the middle, what would have changed in this show?
Nothing. You wouldn't have learned.
It would have
something.
actually been a more cohesive show.
It.
It would have had a through line. We wouldn't have had to think about anything else. But they do bring up some
Also,
of the things that
there's this other aspect. They have no concept of timeline. The writers of this show have no concept of timeline. You don't just get trademarks overnight. You don't just get these things take years. These things have a process, and some of the stuff that has been talked about is absolute nonsense. Anyone who knows anything about trademark disputes would tell you this is complete nonsense.
She did it while she was in custody.
Yeah, but the whole thing is they're trying to sort. When is this taking place? Is it 3 days after the court case, or 3 days after Blonsky was?
There's no concept.
There's
they don't
no-
tell you.
There's so little concept of time actually passing that everything feels as though it happened yesterday.
Yeah.
Which is
a good
real
example
problem.
is like episode 3 when she's going on these dates,
Yeah.
and you thought that was a speed dating.
I thought it was a speed dating, yeah, exactly, because of the way it's directed. And
Whereas
done.
they're probably thinking, oh, this could have been like days apart.
Yeah, it's really poor, and it doesn't help. Because it makes it even worse, the fact that they haven't done this.
Yeah. So this is the meeting of Jen and Titania. Titania comes across as this mean character and says, "Get over it, Jennifer. The name She-Hulk is mine." And then someone wants to take a photo with Titania. She kind of gets in the way and like shows that she's a big villain. And then you cut to Jennifer. She goes, "I can't believe she stole my name." And I think Nikki says, "But you said you didn't like that name anyways," which is true. And she goes, "I don't." And then she goes, "Okay." And she goes, "It's just what people decide to call me. It's not who I am. I'm still Jennifer Walters." She-Hulk is just a thing that happened to me. And this is a callback to episode 1, I believe, where she says that.
Yeah, yeah.
She-Hulk is just
and
a
it's
thing
a
that
running
happened to me.
underlying theme in all the previous episodes that Jen is almost like a superhero in herself in terms of the lore.
I heard a very interesting thing, which I heard something that I think Mauler said may happen in this episode. Not this episode, this series. So there's an interesting idea that Jen is perfect, right? But what the writers want to do is they want to make her struggle with the idea of being She-Hulk. And they want her to start to like She-Hulk more and more, to the point that she really feels like she's She-Hulk more than Jen. But the resolving character arc is going to be, but remember, you are always perfect, Jen.
Oh, God.
Remember, just look deep inside. It all comes from the heart. Jen, you were perfect before you were She-Hulk, and you are perfect without She-Hulk.
Yeah.
And that's who you need to be. And I actually think they're going to do that.
Then, mate, we'll see. We'll see.
I think they're going to have... Anyway, so we're back to the office, and Nikki says, that's a really good perspective to have. She-Hulk is just a thing that happened to you. And she goes... And then Jen says, I admit that there's parts I enjoy. And she goes, like the amazing hair, no hangover, walking home with headphones on without being afraid. And then she says, every woman's dream. Not to say that the writers have no idea what women are like, because that's what they think they know. But, and far be it, I'm a man, so I can only talk from my perspective of what my female friends are like. But women that I know have far greater aspirations than just having amazing hair, no hangover, and being able to walk home with headphones on.
I don't know which planet these people live on, and when I hear these kind of lines, the reality is, and I think that this is one of the things that one has to accept with the Disney products. These lines are not being made for the benefit of the character. They're lines from the writers to the audience, and you've got to wonder who the hell where is this audience that wants to hear stuff like that? I mean, who wants to hear stuff like that, and who thinks that that is even a valid aspiration, a valid way of thinking? Well, isn't it great? I mean,
just don't we think that women can aspire to much more?
No, but
can't you aspire to be successful?
Women?
Just like Jen is aspiring to be a successful lawyer, why would you reduce your whole gender to saying that what their dream is to have nice hair, no hangover, and to be able to walk home with headphones on without being scared? I think there's much more that you could say.
Or do we prefer to be a lawyer who can represent people, who's actually doing well? Because remember, the She-Hulk character cannot be a lawyer in a normal firm, which is like 100% of all the firms that are out there. So this whole thing is just, who are the audience? Again, I don't want to say that everything is perfect, but I've seen some stats about this, and I've seen some of the comments being made by the writers and by Disney itself, and they are sort of pushing this as very much this show is aimed at women, and I don't get it. Because I can't see that women are looking at this thing. I'm so frightened of going out all the time. I wish I was She-Hulk, and they're hitting the spot every time.
But it's not even that. So I can understand women having to be cautious when they're walking home in certain parts of the world.
But even men have to do that sometimes. I mean, it's not like only women.
Women more so than men have to worry about that. That's fair enough. But what I'm saying is that the show, like you've said, who is it targeted at, is targeted at the writers. The writers are writing for themselves. And no one else. They're writing for themselves and saying, what a great line, what a great episode that we made. And people are sitting at home and saying, oh, you're being too harsh, like there's only 2 lines that they've written and you're talking so much about it. But the fact of the matter is, they got paid a hell of a lot of money to write this show.
And it's an underlying theme, it's not just those 2 lines.
This is not just like someone said, here's 10 grand, go and write a season of 9 episodes of She-Hulk. They got paid a hell of a lot of money to write this show and make it interesting. And put on a global platform, which is, the whole idea of Disney Plus is a global platform that millions and millions and millions of people are watching. Previous shows, they've had like 500 million people watch, here and there, whatever it is. I think this episode 1, they had at least 300 million views, something like that. So a lot of people are watching this and probably taking stuff away. I hope maybe not with this show, but a lot of people are watching this, and you're getting paid a lot of money to put your words on that page and show what a good writer you are, and it seems like you spent 5 minutes
Yeah. I mean, so
per episode.
they decide to actually. I mean, I must admit, I do think I don't know if these guys were paid a lot of money. I think they were just put together and brought together. Say, look, can you do this? And they just all said yes without any real.
A team of writers that have never written for a superhero
Yeah,
show or a law show.
They just came up and said we can do it, and Disney were dumb enough to think they could. And basically,
They really did. It's like they're the snake oil salesman.
Yeah.
So we're back in the office. Jen says the conclusion of the office scene is Jen says, you know, I'm not a different person who needs a different name, and Nikki says, okay, so you're not mad at the name She-Hulk, and she goes, no, I don't care about it, while crushing a stapler. So that's the end of that scene. Then we cut to Nikki, and this is the Nikki and Pug scene, where Nikki is looking at her iPad or whatever we call it, tablet device.
Wasn't the previous scene also where they had to conclude that they need to get a lawyer?
No, not yet.
Oh, right, okay.
So Nikki is in her own office now. So she's got her own office. And Pug walks in, and Nikki is looking at this tablet, and she's looking at Titania's products, and she's going, why does she have to charge her fans so much for everything? And then she goes, because that's smart, Nikki. That's why she's rich and you're broke. And then Pug walks in. He says, what's happening, Nick? And she goes, oh, I was just talking to myself. And he says, I can't pretend I'm here for a friendly visit. I need a favor. And Nikki says, you know my price. Return favor plus interest. Done. Okay. So he says he wants her to stand in line with him, waiting for a sneaker drop. And the sneaker drop is the Iron Man 3s, which are coming out. And they're limited to 1 pair per customer. And she goes, why do you need 2 pairs? And he says, 1 to rock and 1 to stock. And she says, okay, so you're telling me that you're going to collect shoes to look at that you're never going to wear. I respect that. And here's the thing. This does show an awareness of sneaker culture, because people do that. They do rock one and stock one.
Yeah.
And, you know, everyone will think of the Jordan brand as the standard.
Yeah, all that kind of stuff.
Everyone lines up and gets their sneakers and these things.
Yeah, I'm not a great fan, but go ahead.
Nowadays, people don't really queue up anymore. You just do it through apps and orders.
Yeah, you just order it.
But let's say, you know, for whatever reason, the queue is what he wants to do. Why have they changed Pug into this childish character?
Know, it really wound me up. I mean, and we're going to see worse coming along.
He's a completely different character to the last episode.
In the previous episode, he was actually a good lawyer.
He was a competent lawyer.
And now he's turned into a fool. And it's not just the... I'm not saying that people who buy shoes and then sell them at exorbitant fees are fools. It's just the way he's being portrayed in that sort of character. If he had been a bit more serious, if he had been shown a little bit of seriousness, it's a serious hobby. It's something seriously is really into, as a business or as a whatever. Fine, but he's turned into a dork who just happened, and almost the exact opposite of what he was in the previous episode. It's almost like the characters have their names on a piece of paper, and the writer said, right, okay, who have we got that can say these lines? Oh, right, we'll give this one to this guy, and they don't care about the background story of the guy.
Yeah, I've not said anything bad about the acting so far in this series, but this is one of those times where I don't know if it's the writers who've made it really hard for the guy playing Pug, or if the actor himself has forgotten what his character was in the previous episode.
It's almost certainly direct.
And part of it might be the fact that these episodes, they don't seem to have been written in any specific order. Who knows if they're reordered?
There's a lot of things that people have been saying about
some of these
She-Hulk.
scenes.
The fact that it was supposed to be released before Miss Marvel. Apparently, it was so bad they had to redo whole elements of the story. No one seems to contradict that particular line of thought, which does make you think that it's actually correct. That is actually what happened. So who knows what's been left on the cutting floor, how much they've had to sort of rearrange the story, how much they've had to reshoot, what they've had to reshoot. All I know is here we have a situation where
working.
a character is the only thing he has in common with the previous time is his name.
Yeah,
In
he's a
terms of
fool in
attitude.
episode 2. In episode 2, he shows her where the bathroom is as this like welcome to
Yeah,
the firm.
well-
So he's a bit of a fool in episode 2, like a jokey guy. Then he's kind of a serious lawyer in episode 3.
Reasonably competent lawyer, yeah, reasonably competent.
Episode 4, we don't really see him.
Yeah.
And now he's back and he's this sort of sneaker kid. But the thing is, there are adults who do this and don't have to pretend to be
Come
children.
to those depths, that's right.
You know, this
So
whole
he
thing
asked
of
for this favour.
one to rock and one to stock. He could have just said rock one, stock one.
You could have
It's
just
very
said, "Look,
easy.
I'm a serious collector." And I mean, there's a
Yeah.
lot of ways of doing this. There's a lot of ways
And then
of
the
doing
way
this.
he talks to Nikki. And the thing is, I think part of it is he's reflecting what Nikki's like as well, because she's a certain type of character.
No.
So-
I disagree with that. I think that he's been asked by the director to do that because Nikki being almost ditzy has to be almost like the clever one in the scene.
But I don't think
So
they would
therefore,
have...
you bring down the
Yeah,
other people
exactly.
down to
So
their level.
what I'm saying is, I don't think they would have Nikki being herself, how she is with this sort of like vibrant-ish, a little bit childish, ditzy character, with him being serious in the same room, saying, because he would almost be looking down upon her when
Yeah.
he's saying stuff. So he
Well,
says,
he's not looking down on her. It's just that she's so low, he has no option but to look down.
well, he's physically looking down on her in this scene because she's sitting down.
yeah.
But he says, I'm not going to brag to you or anything, but I do have some pretty rare limited editions that I've got from my drip broker. And then this is the line. So this is the line that opens up the episode. And this, you know, every episode's had two little arcs, hasn't it? So this is the line that opens up the B route for this episode, which is, it is the Edna route, the Edna Mole route. And if you know who Edna Mole is, you've watched The Incredibles. And that's the lady who says
That's
no
right.
capes.
Yeah.
And what we're getting to is someone who's going to make some clothes for She-Hulk. And he goes, I've got a guy called Alonzo, the drip broker, and he can find anything you're looking for fashion-wise. And Nikki says, can this drip broker find someone who could do custom clothing for, say, a superhuman-sized person? And he says, no doubt. Does he really know if someone can find superhuman clothing? He's never asked that question before. Is this a screening
Yeah,
question
but
you ask your drip broker? Hey, do you do superhero clothing as
Yeah,
well?
but-
Because I may one day find someone who's a superhero and I need them to get clothes.
But he has said that he can find anything fashionable. So the reality is that I had no problem with that. The idea of being a drip broker was, that's nonsense, really. So, but anyway, so he knows a man who knows a man who knows a man, and go on and on and on. That will eventually can get anything you like, which is effectively what they're saying.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah, and then we follow them. So it goes. Nikki and Pug, they go to this boba cafe, and they say, I think Pug says, Alonzo says this is the front for a superhero clothing business.
I think you've missed a scene there. Before this, they had Jen had to. She decides to fight the case. She can't fight it herself. She can't defend herself. So as a lawyer. So they choose another lawyer who's working in the firm, and one of the first things this other lawyer says is, "You've got to, wear proper clothes."
Oh, that's not yet. That's later.
Are you really sure about this?
Yeah, because she hasn't even met her boss yet.
Oh my word!
Because the boss is the one who makes her take up
This
the case.
is how sad this episode is, because honestly,
It may be jumbled around, but let's stick with this beeline and we'll go back to
Okay.
that, because that does come up later. So they go to this boba cafe, and Alonzo says this is a front for a superhero clothing business, and they're like, okay, hi, you ready to order? Hey, how are you doing, man? My boy Alonzo sent me, and he goes, okay, what's the order? And he goes, no, my boy Alonzo, the drip broker, sent me for the superhero stuff. And the guy goes, this is a boba cafe. And then Nikki speaks in Mandarin. And then he says, what is that, Chinese? I'm not Chinese. And then she said, I said we're not cops. And I said it in Chinese. I feel so much shame. He's mad I offended him. And then the barista guy goes to the back and then calls them from another part of the cafe. And it turns out that he is the guy who's got all of these... What do we want
he
to
goes
call
out
them?
one door, comes in another, and basically he has all this superhero stuff.
It's like rip-off Avengers merchandise.
It's
isn't
just
it?
basic. The way I look at it is, it's actually quite. There is an element of humor that in this, in that he's basically ripped off every trademark of the Avengers and other superheroes. Because obviously, you trademark the name Avengers, you trademark the toy, you trademark this, and he's got rip-off versions of it. But not trying to get around the trademarks, he's dropped it. He's changed a letter from an E to an O or whatever. So there is an element of, he's a rip-off merchant, which is a bit of which I felt was actually quite offensive, because the character is
Racial
profiling. Throughout the whole of this episode, or all this series, and even before this series, there's all this stuff about, racial stereotype. No, people aren't like that. You've got to give them proper roles. And they've made this racial profile. They've just basically highlighted from their perspective that rip-off merchants or like that are all Chinese or South Korean.
Someone from an Asian background.
It's
it's that standard thing, and it may not be a thing in America, but it's definitely a thing in the UK, which is that DVD guy,
Yeah.
And I don't know if when they advertise for this role, if they advertise for the ethnicity, and
I am pretty sure he's been chosen because of his ethnicity.
It's kind of like when
pretty
Indians
sure
used to always do the cab driver thing.
Yeah, I have no doubt about it.
I wonder if the actor
I did
feels that
find
way.
it really offensive. Personally, I found it really offensive, and then I just sat there thinking, God, this is just rubbish. It's you. On the one hand, you're looking at a series where they're trying to promote a certain vibe about people, and now you've just taken like a left turn that undoes it all and makes a joke of what you're trying to do almost.
This is the thing. I wouldn't have been angry at this happening unless... the only reason I'm angry at this happening is because the show itself is trying to slap you in the face every 5 seconds to tell you how progressive it is and how progressive you aren't. But the show itself is so progressive, it's regressive.
It's in reverse.
That's going to turn into the title of this discussion. So progressive, it's regressive.
Yeah.
So this is the thing. There's so much try hard behind this show, and then they do things like this. And I'm sure the actor was probably comfortable taking the role. He's making money.
He always wants money.
He gets to be in a Marvel series.
Yeah.
It's a big deal.
Hey kids, watch me. I'm here. Dad, you're just like the worst guy on the street. Yeah, but aren't I good being the worst guy on the street?
Exactly. And if it's the case that they didn't specifically go for this guy because of his ethnicity and he was the best actor, then fair enough. But it's just something that I noticed.
Nobody's going to believe that.
It's just something that I noticed, okay? So...
And the worst thing about this scene is that it's got all this rubbish. And they're basically rubbish toys. Okay? And Pug, who is the lawyer, has been turned into this ditzy I stock sneakers, is suddenly like a 5-year-old in an adult's body.
He really is.
And
he really is.
It is just ridiculous. The way the way he says, I must have this crappy Captain America shield with what appears to be an even crappier Thor hammer as a toy, and he goes around playing with them and continues to play with them into the next scene. So it's, how dumb are these people?
So they say to the guy, you're not the guy that we're looking for. And he goes, I'm not going to give you his name. I don't know who he is, something like that. And all that they needed to do to get the actual guy's name was buy some of this guy's stuff.
Yeah.
There wasn't much of a hurdle.
Yeah, they buy a few small crappy items and he tells them everything they need to know, apparently.
Yeah. And then we cut to the next scene, which is them in the rip-off Avengers merchandise over their lovely clothes from the law firm. And they're standing in front of a lift door. And there's a guy over a speaker. And Nikki says, I want to talk to you about making clothing for my client. And he says, do you have a referral? And she says, Titania referred me. And they kind of looked at each other awkwardly. And the guy says, I saw you shrug. Rejected. And then she goes, actually, my client is an Avenger. She's one of the top tier ones, sir. And then he goes, you get a 15-minute consultation. My assistant will set up the appointment. I can still see you. Sorry,
This is
just caught them lying.
I know, and then,
And then she said, nah, let me just upscale
know.
my lie to her being an Avenger. And you just said, okay, fine, you can have 15 minutes?
the worst part of this scene. The worst part of this scene is they're trying to rip off The Incredibles. Okay, when Mr. Incredible goes to Edna's home because he's got some damage on his cape or whatever, and you got this whole thing outside the gate and everything, and they're trying to rip it off, and they do it so badly. You know, Disney owns that particular franchise, The Incredibles. Why not just do it really well? Why not just do it
You
really
literally have
well?
source material you can pull from to be like, this is how it was done successfully, let's do it similarly. But they're trying to make everyone to be a
If they
fool.
copied it, it would have been fine because they own the blooming franchise.
Yeah, and also it's just not believable for Pug to have that instant connect to someone else who then gives you the instant connect to someone else who is the person that you're looking for. Who's, by the way, in a very small field, I'm assuming, of tailors who do things for superheroes. It doesn't seem like they worked hard enough to get there. And when they do get there, they get to lie, get caught lying, get to lie again, and then the person just accepts their lie.
This whole thing again, and I've used the word contrived a few times. I'm going to have to get a thesaurus out and come up with other words for contrived because this is just trying to manipulate the audience because they think the audience is stupid. We've seen characters make costumes for superheroes. Now one thinks of Daredevil, one thinks of in Black Lightning where the tailor was actually the guy who produces suits and everything, and The Incredibles, etc., etc. We know this is not a character that the audience will be unfamiliar with, or a role that the audience will be unfamiliar with. So why be so stupid about it? I mean, It just doesn't even make sense.
Why can't you wait for the Daredevil episode and then you can have Daredevil introduce her to the tailor?
We're going to be no doubt talking about some of this stuff.
There's so many other ways that this could have happened, and I don't think it's they're not working hard.
It wasn't even playing it for laughs because if anybody thought any of this stuff was funny, they have a serious problem with their sense of humour. Maybe they've lost it lost it in the bus or something.
If they think
because
it's funny,
there's
then
nothing funny
fine.
about
But
this.
it's just not funny. I'll tell you.
It wasn't funny at all.
So then we cut to the scene that you were talking about, which is when Jen is... So this is now the A line of the story, which is Jen actually fighting Titania in the court. So Jen is now in the office with her boss. So remember, Jen is unhappy that her name has been trademarked, but she's just kind of sitting there letting it happen. And then her boss says, why did I pass a billboard on Santa Monica Boulevard today advertising a She-Hulk Booty Boost smoothie?
Yeah.
And then Jen then has to explain this, and she says, oh, that's not actually me. See, the name was never really mine officially, and everyone in the media just started calling me that. But now this incredibly awful, slightly superpowered woman, and I actually think that line there, incredibly awful, slightly superpowered woman, is probably all Jamila Jamil had to go on when she was given this character.
Yeah, that's quite possible.
I don't think there's anything else behind it.
Yeah.
And the boss says, I'm going to stop you because that's none of my concern.
Yeah.
He doesn't even let her explain herself.
He's right. He doesn't have to explain. He's right.
He should, though.
No, I actually think the way they made him play out, I thought that was okay because he's the boss. He doesn't want to get down in that sort of crap. He just get on with it. Just deal with it. Just deal with it.
I disagree. I think that they could have shown Boss to be supportive, or at least listen to why his firm is dealing with this issue. And if she just said what was going on with Titania's character, it probably wouldn't have cleared anything up in the end.
It wouldn't have
But
helped
they
the
did
story.
this. They made him cut her off because, again, they want to show that there's a mean man who's suppressing this woman.
I don't think he came across as a mean man.
He's come across as a mean man in all the episodes.
In the previous episodes,
you lose your job if you don't. If you've got a conflict of interest, I'm going to get you out of this firm.
Well, we have to do it anyway.
Yeah, just so many
have
different
lawyers
things.
on cases of conflict
Whenever
of
he's
interest.
on the screen, he's just a mean guy. He's just mean to her specifically.
It may well come across like that, but I think that in this instance, he just wants to get rid of the blooming. Now, just deal with the problem, and she's left with having to deal with the problem, which is actually what her friend should have told her.
Yeah,
she
should have known this was going to be an issue legally, but given that she's a lawyer, so the boss says GLK and H made She-Hulk, the face of our superhuman law division, and now we find ourselves in the middle of a frivolous lawsuit. No one hires a firm that can't handle its own messes.
Yeah, exactly.
And she says, I'm going to fix this, sir. So the first thing to say is, they haven't even, announced that she's definitely in a lawsuit at this point. But he's just said, we're in a frivolous lawsuit, right? Because she was sitting there happy to not sue.
No, she wasn't in a lawsuit because there was a restraining order put on her. So straight away, it's
not a restraining order.
Well, it was a cease and desist, wasn't it? You can't call yourself She-Hulk.
She can't call herself She-Hulk.
Yeah,
but she says herself she doesn't want to call herself She-Hulk.
Yeah.
So if she doesn't want to call herself She-Hulk and she's sitting there not counter-suing, then there is no lawsuit.
That means she's
happy to just accept it. Exactly.
Yeah.
So he's decided that they're in a frivolous lawsuit. But in the previous scene when she was in the office, she was actually accepting of the situation. And she said, I'm not She-Hulk. It's just a name. I don't care about it anyway.
Yeah.
So he's the one who's decided that. Then Jen says, I'm going to fix this, sir. Why didn't she just say, oh, I'm not going to use that name anyway? That's literally what she decided.
Give her a new name. But then the series is called She-Hulk, so you can't say that, can
she? Exactly. But they could have at least come to that conclusion in a different way. So then the boss says, no, you won't. You will not be the one to fix this. And then Mallory comes in.
Yeah, this is the lawyer.
Mallory is the lady who for about 3 seconds was in a previous episode, and she looked like a lawyer who wasn't a fan of Jen, and they kind of have a bit of thing between them. And she says, I'm surprised and relieved you aren't foolish enough to try and represent yourself. At least you know that basic rule. So we've taken Jen from someone who is a very competent lawyer, who's now dealing with another, what we assume is a competent lawyer, but who is having a go at her and making her feel little. And she says, I'm taking this on as a professional courtesy, but moving forward, we are not colleagues. I'm the attorney, you're the client. That's the only way this can work. And she says, agreed, and Jen says, agreed. And then she says, why didn't you trademark your pseudonym? And Jen says, I never even thought about it, why would I? And then there's a joke, did Doctor Strange have to trademark his name? Did Thor? And Mallory says, you chose 2 examples of people who use their real names, which someone will find some funny somewhere.
Yeah.
And it would have been more interesting if she's actually brought up some people like Iron Man. Spider-Man. If she brought up people who actually do have pseudonyms. Yeah. And someone said...
And they mentioned Iron Man earlier in the episode.
Are those genuinely trademarked by those people? Who knows? It would be actually interesting to know that. But no, they had to maneuver around that because otherwise they'd have to give us a 30-minute episode instead of a 20-minute episode.
And also they might find that actually what their whole premise for defense suddenly falls apart if they'd chosen those other people.
That's true, yeah. So then she puts up a picture of Titania, who's this like outlandish social media, whatever she is, fashionista, and she goes, this is the person who legally outmaneuvered you? So first they're saying we shouldn't judge people by how they look, and now she's saying, look at this idiot. Look at this, by the picture alone, look at this idiot. She's the one that beat you. And Jen kind of looks dejected and goes, yeah. And then she says, we need to show strength, countersue, establish you are using the name in a professional capacity before the trademark date, and Titania is profiting off name recognition already established in the marketplace. If you're going to be my client, dress like you respect yourself, and not like a football player pleading no contest to a DUI.
Yeah.
And then she goes, Nikki? And Nikki jumps in the office and she goes, yes, I wasn't lurking, I was close by. And she goes, you obviously spend a lot of time thinking about what you wear. Why don't you help her? And Nikki says, I'm actually already on top of that. So now we're getting the blending of the two
storylines.
And she goes, I got a consultation with a guy who makes clothing for superheroes. And she says, oh, I don't really think I need that. And they both, Mallory and Nikki, say, you do. And time for court. We're finally in the courtroom. And Jen walks in with Mallory. And Titania says, nice suit, Shrek.
Yeah.
The sigh.
It's so pathetic.
I could have written that myself if you gave me 5 seconds.
If I wanted to be offensive.
Yeah.
It's just the whole thing is
Can't call her Green Goblin or something.
no, you can't call her She-Hulk either.
Maybe Green Goblin's trademarked his name.
You don't. I don't know. Is to
You
me.
can't use it.
To me, it wouldn't surprise me if that was a throwaway line that they thought, you know what, that sounds so cool.
Yeah, it's so obvious just because she's green, or but maybe that's what they're trying to play her off as, someone who just goes for easy stuff. They can say that's what the character is. It's not about the writing. We're writing appropriate to the character that we wrote, but you wrote a bad character. Okay. Bailiff says, "All rise. Court is now in session." And I'm not gonna go through every single line here because obviously they do talk here and there. But the idea is that Titania's lawyer says that they own the trademark She-Hulk. And then Mallory says, "I'm not wasting the time's court. We're not wasting the court's time." And she basically goes on actually quite a powerful little speech here where she talks about, in a confident way, says actually Jen has been using the name She-Hulk and there is public records of the fact that she has said she is She-Hulk and she identifies as She-Hulk.
Well, they showed the videos of the people actually using her name and the journalists, etc., or whatever. So they show that she is recognised as She-Hulk, but then
and then there is a small clip where she says, "Oh, I'm not actually She-Hulk. I was just given that name." But then
that was
But then while they're trying to get everything thrown out, they say, "Actually, you need to prove, rather than on a few clips that she says I'm She-Hulk, you need to prove that there is a track record of her using the name She-Hulk."
Of actually embracing it. And also the Titania's lawyer came out with that clip which showed that she doesn't want to be called She-Hulk, if my memory serves me correctly. And maybe I'm suffering from memory loss because this episode was so poor.
Well, Titania's lawyer comes out with, this is the clip, so someone shouts, "She-Hulk, She-Hulk," and Jen says, "My name never has been and never will be She-Hulk.
Exactly.
It's lazy, it's reductive, and it's straight up garbage."
Yeah.
And,
so that then kind of puts the whole case of Mallory, of what she said, on effectively quicksand. They're sinking, and they need to come up with a strategy very quickly to demonstrate that she has embraced the term She-Hulk.
Yeah. And Titania, at some point in this scene, tries to enter her beauty products in as evidence.
Yeah.
It's a thing that happened. Just like She-Hulk, it's just a thing that happened.
Yes, I mean, again, it's all this, I don't know, this whole attitude that, are people seriously like that? Of course they're not. But, you take a character, you push it to an extreme, and then you say, well, let's make them look even more stupid.
That's it, yeah.
Fine. And the whole thing about here is, going back to what the lawyer had said, you got taken down by her. Well, effectively, they're trying to make it look like she's stupid, and even more stupid.
Yeah. And so then we cut to Jen and Nikki, and they're finally going to see the outfit guy. So, this outfit guy, what did you think about?
I hated this outfit.
What did you think?
I generally hated this outfit guy. I mean, first of all, he was just a complete caricature of the worst kind. There is zero seriousness in this show, really. But it's a show that's trying to be serious, which really kind of gets under my skin in the sense that it doesn't know what it's trying to do. It does not know what it's trying to do. And you have this pathetic designer who is aloof and
egotistical and
doesn't appear to have any...
puts down his own potential clients.
Fine, you can do all that stuff. But the thing just came across as rubbish because, you're talking about creating costumes for superheroes that require more than just, it looks nice. Because you've got to think about fabrics, got to think about this, got to think about that. Will it burn? I go back to the Incredibles where, Edna had to come up with a whole range of costumes that could handle fire, handle this, handle that.
Yeah.
So it's clever. Yes, it has to look good, but have some element of superior thinking.
I mean, Luke does say that.
This person is absolutely nonsense.
So Luke does say that he does that, and he's kind of angry that there's such a simple request from She-Hulk. But my general sense is from this character is that, again, this is a show that wants us to think a different way about how we portray women, right? What women
This could
go
have been
through.
a smart woman. It could have been a smart woman who's
Even
serious
if it's
about
not a woman,
doing
even
stuff.
if it's not a woman,
No, but I think
the way that they've portrayed this character is like a gay fashionista.
yeah,
And it,
but only because he's a man.
someone will say, "How do you know he's gay?" They've literally, this
Yeah,
is
this
literally
is-
how
this
writers
is- yeah.
are writing gay people.
Yeah.
Okay, it's so ridiculous that to always portray a gay person like this. And it's like, of course, the fashion designer is going to be a gay fashionista who looks down upon everyone and says, they walk in and he sees them for the first time and goes, "Is the hag convention in town?"
I know, it's pathetic. It's absolutely
I'm
useless.
sorry, if I'm a superhero and someone treats me that way, I'm not doing business with you anymore.
It's even worse than Titania, actually. If you actually think
really
about
is.
it, it's actually worse than
Titania
Titania.
was not that mean.
So you hate Titania, and yet you can't, and you find this person is the greatest person on earth. I mean, it's just ridiculous.
So Nikki says, "Luke, this is the She-Hulk," and she says, "Jennifer Walters, I'm Jennifer Walters," and he says, "I've never heard of you. My client list is very exclusive because my work is impeccable." And Nikki says, "Well, like I told you before, she's going to be one of the Avengers." And he says, "You said she was one." And she says, "It hasn't been announced yet. They're still working out the deal, but she is. The Hulk is her cousin." And he says, "By blood?" Sorry, you're looking at a big green lady.
No.
What did you think?
I think I think this is all contrived nonsense. It's just pathetic.
She should have said,
it's tic tac.
she should have said, "My blood is better than his." Just like she said in the first episode.
Yeah,
Because my blood's better than yours.
Yeah. I mean, it's just
And so here we go. So she says, "I just want you to make me a new suit." And he goes, "What kind of superheroing do you do?"
yeah.
And he goes, "Do you need built-in weaponry, waterproofing, fire resistance?" Which I think is fair for a character who's making superhero stuff to ask. And she says, "No, I don't need a suit like that. I just need a business suit." And he says, "Everything I make stands up to the highest combat standards. I don't make basic." And
Whatever,
he says,
yeah.
I don't really need any of that. I'm a lawyer." That's what Jen says. And she kind of laughs and he laughs. And she's a lawyer. She's just a lawyer. That's so cute.
Yeah.
I love that. That's so cute. And he says, "This is a waste of my time and my talents. Please get out." And then Nikki comes and saves the day and says, "But she needs a suit that fits her as Jen and as She-Hulk." So the first time that we did talk about this wardrobe thing, and we said,
Goes
It's a
back
bit-
to the spandex thing that Hulk
It's a
was saying
spandex
from the
thing.
very first episode.
yeah, so she's already been given the answer anyway. Just make stuff out of spandex. So he doesn't need to come and say, "Oh yeah, okay, fine, we'll just make it out of spandex, a spandex suit." But no, he went with a stretchy wool. He's
Yeah.
gonna make stretchy wool suits. Must be really itchy.
No, not necessarily. But
We'll
the reality is it had to do something different because otherwise you're back to spandex.
Otherwise, you've already got the answer. Yeah. And so then Jen says, "Why was he so mean?" And Nikki says, "In fashion, it's cool to be mean." And
Which is really pathetic. Now, this is the Me Too movement, yeah? The era of the Me Too movement.
it's not
where all
even
these...
Me Too.
No,
it's
no,
just,
hold it,
it's
hold
just
it.
stereotype.
No,
it's
no,
just
it's a
stereotypes.
worse type of stereotype. The fashion industry has been abusing women left, right, and centre on that basis that it's okay because that's what they're like. And it's... If you're going to characterise somebody, don't sort of portray them on that way. That's why I look at it. I think
Yeah.
that,
I mean, they
just,
are normalizing that the fashion industry is mean.
Yeah, which is
And they
wrong.
are playing into the stereotype. But I guess at the same time, they are acknowledging that the fashion industry is mean.
No, I don't think they're doing that.
Because the fashion industry is mean.
I think it's encouraging people to be mean, if you ask me. But anyway,
But the thing is, the fashion industry is mean. But if this is the character that you're going to rely on to do your things, you don't want them to be like that.
yeah.
That's the thing.
And it'd be nice if you could actually say. I mean, if you think about Daredevil is the and even Black Lightning, and even the Edna Kravitz role. I mean, each time you find that the characters who create these uniforms, there's almost like two types of character. The ones who create it for the villains, the one who create it for the heroes. The ones who create it for the heroes are actually always forward thinking. They're trying to think ahead in the sense that they know you're trying to do some good. And they're committed towards helping you do good. This guy is treated. You would think that they could have turned around and said, "I love." Maybe he himself would have two personas. One that I want to be this, aggressive costume designer for rich people, and then on the other hand, my real preference is to be really serious and all the rest of it. But it would require a bit of thinking, a bit of clever writing, and also deciding not to be in a mode of the episode should only last 20 minutes.
But the thing is that the way this guy is portrayed, again, it doesn't make sense, because why would you write a character who is mean to all his clients? He's a different kind of mean. Like Edna in Incredibles, you could argue that she is dismissive of other characters, says like, no capes, this and sorts of stuff.
Yeah.
But that's because she knows what she's doing.
And
she's not calling them hags.
Yeah, and she's also doing... She's doing the thinking that some of these superheroes are not doing.
Yeah, she made Jack a suit when he was a baby because it would protect him.
Yeah.
They didn't even ask for that. She made a suit. And at the same time, you've got characters in, for example, Netflix's Daredevil.
Yeah.
Melvin.
Melvin's a great character.
Melvin's a great character.
Fantastic.
He's not someone who's out there having a go at Daredevil saying, I know how to do everything, blah, blah, blah.
I'll tell you, when they said they were going to find somebody who's going to make costumes, I genuinely thought they were going to go for a Melvin type character. Yeah. And I was really hoping it would be Melvin.
Yeah.
Even though the rest of the episode was crap, I thought if they got Melvin in there to do this stuff, I thought that would be super cool, because he was dealing with fabrics.
Yeah.
The whole thing was about fabrics.
Melvin was good in a small, nice, contained series, and I see what they're trying to do. They're trying to branch out and have like a go-to guy, like with a costume guy. I'll make a Captain America outfit. I'll make a Bucky Barnes outfit. I'll do all this stuff, and we'll talk about the ending. How that plays in.
Yeah.
So, okay, so this is the first meeting between Luke and Nikki and Jen. And then we cut to, Nikki and Jen looking at Mallory. And they're looking at her dress. And they're saying, they're looking at her and going, she's so impeccable. Where does she shop? And Nikki says, somewhere with valet parking. I think something along those lines. And Mallory's standing with the guy who I said was the definite villain of the series. The guy who she went on a date with, who was like, how do I stab you? Do I use vibranium?
Yeah. Can it withstand with vibranium?
The clear bad guy of the series. And she goes, remember the date I went on with the guy with the fetish? And he's a client, basically. She goes, he's so creepy and disgusting, monstrous. And then she goes, hi, Todd, right? And he goes, She-Hulk. And he goes, didn't know you worked here. And she goes, yeah, are you a client? And he goes, I am. I'm one of the biggest. So he's a guy who has money.
Yeah.
And he's a guy who's creepy.
Very.
So he's almost certainly the bad guy of the whole series, which makes me sad, because it means there's no legit bad guy of the whole series.
Yeah.
And then he says, I just had a meeting with my favourite lady lawyer, who's Mallory, and she goes, no touching, because he's a creepy guy.
Yeah.
And he goes to Jen, he goes, we should reconnect soon. And she goes, absolutely, that would be great. And he goes, yeah, drinks on me. And she has just allowed the creepy guy to go on a date with her again.
Well, I wouldn't take it that far, but what else could she say? But I mean, he's a big client of the company, so you end up saying stuff like that. But it was strange that he was the one that they decided to bring into the episode.
Crazy.
So it's all this. They think they're being clever with the writing.
It's just so obvious that he's a bad guy. And I'll tell you what, if he's not the bad guy, why did he get even screen time? Why did he even get screen time?
Either he's going to be a really bad guy, or he might turn out to be the hero. Who knows? All I know is...
He won't be the hero. He's either creepy bad guy, who's very obvious, in which case they're slapping us in the face and saying, look, it's a creepy bad guy. Please notice that this is the creepy bad guy.
Yeah.
Or... he literally will not be seen in the series again, and we will wonder why the hell they ever give screen time to this actor.
Yeah. Agreed.
And so we cut to the bench where they're sitting outside having a little bit of a lunch, and Jen's in the big suit because now they care about showing that Jen is not in the proper size suits for her and all this sort of stuff. And Nikki says, yeah, and you looked at the guy's dating profile and you were like, I'll give him a couple of precious hours of my life. And she said, and I sat across. No, She-Hulk. She-Hulk sat across from him for an entire dinner. And that's when Jen realizes that this is how she's going to win the case. Because she remembers that she made a dating profile as She-Hulk, went on several dates as She-Hulk, and she showed a clear pattern of using the name. And every single one of those dates is a corroborating witness. And that's basically how they would win this case. So then you cut to the court scene, and Mallory's up there, and she goes, Your Honor, we have compelling evidence my client did in fact self-identify with the moniker She-Hulk well before Titania filed for the trademark. And he says, please proceed. I will just say at this point that, remember when we talked about timelines?
Yeah.
She went on these dates. Titania served her a paper saying, I've got the She-Hulk trademark. We don't know when Titania got that trademark. We don't know when Jen went on the dates. We don't know if Titania had that trademark as soon as she got punched.
The reason I mentioned about the timeline is the whole thing appears to happen over the last week, last 10 days. The episodes, the way they're going from one to another, it's just the type of, maybe it's the type of stories, but it's almost as though the whole thing is being compressed from a timeline into this happened over the last week. That's the problem I have with it. And when they, in the court case, they bring on the guy who some would argue She-Hulk raped, but basically he's the one who's put on the stand, and he's the one who says, I wouldn't date Jen, I would only date She-Hulk. He didn't quite use those words, but that's effectively what he said. And She-Hulk sits there going, or Jen sits there going, well, that's what it is now.
Yeah.
But there is something. This is such a slight story.
Yeah.
If you actually, such a slight story. You could remove half the scenes and come to, that's the story. And it's not as if you've learnt anything extra. You haven't actually got anything extra from those scenes.
The thing is, they're trying to show themselves to be smart because they're saying, look, remember when we showed you that stuff in the 3rd episode and now it's tying into the 4th episode? But this is still less than 45 minutes total, 2 episodes put together. You could have done this as 1 episode.
This is episode 5 was basically a 21 minute episode, even though it says 38 or whatever it is.
It's not smart to bring something back from the previous episode.
The worst thing is, I've just said you could probably remove at least half of the stuff and nothing has changed and nothing has been learnt. And that would mean you could say the whole thing in 10 minutes.
Nothing's happened. I'm telling you, as much as we think things have happened in this series, nothing's really happened. She's just sitting there and she's punched a mid-level superhero. And that's kind of it. She's got her name and she's got a job. And some creepy guys around. We already know there's creepy guys around. There's not really much that's happened in this series.
Oh, man.
And so she sits there, she sees, we see all these guys who go on the dates with her, and they're all going to be like, oh yeah, we never really wanted to be with her, she was a creepy one, and I wasn't quite into her, and all these sorts of things. So they're trying to make it out like she's not the one who wasn't interested in them because they're obnoxious. The guy who lifts weights,
they're finding
and the
problems
art
with her.
guy and the creepy guy, they're all just like, yeah, she's cool, but she's not like my thing. And then,
but they all dated her.
Like you said, then the pediatric oncologist guy who got date raped by her
comes
up and says, yeah, I had a really good time with She-Hulk, but I wasn't into Jen. And then she... So I will just say at this point that I don't normally pay that much attention to the animation because I'm not expecting it to be amazing. But in this scene, I felt like the animation was starting to waver a lot. Because there were times where you can see Mallory talking, and they've kind of done this thing where the aperture of the camera, or however you want to describe it, is more focused on Mallory, so she's in focus, and She-Hulk's in the background, and she's not really reacting. And I think they forgot that they've got an animated character in the scene.
And when she does react,
react, she's supposed to do this sort of thing where she kind of is a bit sad that the guy likes She-Hulk and not Jen, but it didn't really come across that well. And
As I said in previous episodes,
they ran out of money.
they've got they're portraying She-Hulk as somebody who's a Botox addict. I mean, the
That's
lack
the
of
thing,
expression, the lack of expression is quite poor.
And yeah, so then the judge says, "All right, cool. So Jen wins."
Yeah,
And Titania's lawyer didn't get to say anything. And
I know.
back to this, he could have said something like, "Yeah, these are clearly your mates because you saw them on dating profile or whatever it is," you know. Anyway, no cross examination. Who cares about that in a courtroom? So Titania walks over and goes, "This isn't over, hater," which means she's going to be back at some point. I
Yeah,
guess that's what they're trying
yeah,
to tell us.
exactly.
And then the guy who's a bit of a douche walks up to Titania as she's leaving, goes, "Hey, Titania," and she's like, he goes, "I'm so sorry that happened to you. What are you getting into later?" And she goes, "Fine, you can buy me things. Let's go." So he goes with her, and that's the end of Titania for this thing, I think. And then we cut to, I think we cut to Jen and Mallory, who are kind of leaving the courtroom, and Jen says thank you, and she says she may need to schedule several sessions of therapy, but she
yeah.
won. And then Mallory says, "Look, Walters, what that extremely attractive man said in there. You can do better. You deserve better." She knows what his name is.
Yeah, yeah.
We don't know what his name is because they never bothered telling us because they never thought he was going to be important until this time. But you don't talk about someone that you know and go, that extremely attractive man.
I know. That's terrible, isn't it? The very things they objectifying the men is basically what they're doing, and they think that's really cool because apparently that's what women do, and
It's because
maybe
they're getting their back because men have been objectifying women for so long. It's time for them to do it to us. That's what they're doing. Anyway, Jen then says, "Can I buy you a drink to say thanks?" So then we cut to them in the bar. And Jen says, "Here you go. I'm so happy we're doing this. Cheers." And they say, "Quite a strategy. I don't know any other lawyer who would humiliate themselves that way to win a case," is what Mallory says. And she goes, "Yeah, you can always count on me to throw myself under the bus, which is, you can always count on the writers to throw this under the bus."
Yeah.
And she goes, "It's why Holloway pays me the medium bucks." And I didn't know that she knew how much other lawyers were making around her, but I guess she knows where
Yeah.
she falls on the ladder. And at this point, she says, "He couldn't have gone through that. He's never had to prove his value to a parade of underwhelming men." And they're like laughing. I think Mallory says that, and then we get to the point where they basically talk a little bit, and they decide. Well, Jen decides. She goes, "I'm so happy we're friends now." And she goes, "What? Did I just say that out loud?" And Mallory goes, "Thanks for the drink, of course." And they have this moment where they're now seen to be friends because
Yeah.
they've bonded over this case. And do you buy it?
No, not really. But it's just, I mean, the reality is that you could argue that Jen is so desperate for friends that anyone who helps her will be seen as a friend. But it just, I don't know. It's just, this story. What the purpose of the story was that two people who work together in the same firm get to be friends. Is that the purpose of the story? Because the purpose of the story was absolutely zero in terms of She-Hulk. The way I look at it,
The difficulty is that Mallory is seen to not respect Jen at the beginning of the series, right, at the beginning of the episode. Okay, so a couple of episodes ago, Mallory looks at Jen and says, and kind of just gives her this look as if, "I'm not into you as a colleague. I don't really like you that much." And then we have this episode where Mallory is very formal and says, "I'm going to treat you as a client, not a colleague." And she's kind of looking at her and giving her some, she's hitting her with some quips about her dresses and all this sort of stuff and making her seem to be a bit of an idiot. And now she respects her. But she respected her by winning a case in which she was being an idiot with her name.
I know, it's pathetic. This episode, maybe the reason that I'm so upset about it, in terms of, I have given a great deal of leeway to this episode in the previous episodes. Okay, you're always looking for good things and all the rest of it. But it seems to me here that the writers were more interested in a rubbish court case because they wanted these sort of silly conversations that aren't really going to go anywhere, when they could have actually had a really good episode about her, even a funny episode about her going through a range of costumes and clothing that work. I mean, can you imagine how funny it would have been if this guy who thinks he's brilliant suddenly finds himself having a really difficult customer, the designer having a difficult customer because he's underestimated or over compensated on the clothing side, and as a result made life a hell for her. And the whole thing could have been so good. It could have been so good. And it also would highlight that, yes, you hate men. Well, guess what? Men are rubbish because they can't even think of the basics.
Yeah.
But it will bring it together in a way that would really make it good.
Or just even give us a little bit of something, you know?
And they did zero of that.
Yeah.
You know,
and we've got one scene left, which we're going to talk about. But here's the thing. I can tell you, I can make something off the top of my head. I'll do it now. I'll literally do it now. So we'll focus on the costume side of things.
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, the trademark thing happened. We'll make that the B line.
Yeah.
And we'll do the costume side of things as the A line. Well, don't you think, with a company this big, with so many characters that they have, when they're trying to introduce the X-Men and all these sorts of things, right? Can't you walk into a costume place and try on some outfits?
Yeah.
And then you can see her like cutting between outfits, and some of the outfits might be of superheroes that we know, and they don't quite fit.
Yeah.
You know, she could try on Storm's outfit or something.
She could try on 101
She
different
could try
things.
on other people's outfits. And we could sit there and we could laugh and we go, oh, the X-Men, or the Fantastic Four. She can't try Reed Richards' outfit on. It's a stretchy outfit.
Yeah. I mean, there could have been all kinds.
Literally a stretchy outfit that she could put on.
Yeah.
They've got things like this that they can do, but no. So what happens? The last scene, Mary goes, "Weren't you supposed to be getting a suit?" And she goes, "Oh yeah, I'm supposed to go get a suit." So then she goes back to this Luke guy, and she goes, "Luke, I'm here for my suits." And Luke pulls out this rack, right? And he gives her 2 suits on there. And first thing that you should know is that he hands her a suit with a jacket.
Yeah.
Yeah? And then the Foley sounds, unzipping.
Yeah.
How do you unzip a jacket for a suit? There's no zip on it.
Yeah, just pathetic.
Then he hands her another one, which admittedly has a zip, which is obviously her superhero outfit. And she's like, "I didn't ask for this." And he basically goes, "Yeah, I made it for you anyway, don't worry." And we don't see it.
You don't see any of it.
We don't see any of her putting
Which is even worse, actually. To be honest, that's even worse.
I thought it would be nice to just see her in the suit.
Or
Like
even,
standard
or
suit.
even her without the suit.
Yeah.
Not necessarily, but see the suit. To not see it at all.
Yeah. She could have put it on.
Pathetic.
She could have put the suit
What
on.
you do see wound me up no end.
So okay, this is the end of the episode. So the end of the episode, while she's trying on this stuff, and we don't see what it looks like, Luke goes to the back and he's like, "Who's left this out in the open?" and whatever it is. He picks up a box and he walks over, and on the rack next to where he places this box is a red outfit, like a slight, not too dark red, but like a darkish red outfit. And then the box, which has got kind of like it's got a helmet in it, which is like a greyish, yellowish
Well, I think
top,
it's pinkish, yellowish sort of thing.
whatever it is. And basically it's the Daredevil. It's the Daredevil
It's
helmet.
a Daredevil helmet.
It's a Daredevil helmet.
It didn't look, to me, other than the shape, the colour was so awful that I thought, what the hell are they doing to this? You know, sometimes just accept that there have been good things from previous episodes that you just do not change, and previous series. And if you're going to do the blooming Daredevil introduction through a helmet, show the helmet in the right
all its
way.
glory.
Yeah, in its glory. And yet you're showing it like some little kid has taken a spray paint and
It's
decided...
it's a teaser, isn't it?
It's for a girl. It's actually, to me, it looked like this is a Daredevil helmet for a girl. And it's like, what the hell is all that about?
Yeah, I watched a little interview with Charlie Cox talking about the fact that he was in the She-Hulk universe.
Oh, right, okay.
And to be fair, he said that the Daredevil we're going to see in this series is a very lightened version of the Daredevil that we're going to see in his series,
Might end
which
up
I
being a
hope
clown.
which I hope is true. But the thing that made me angry about this was not even the helmet or the suit or anything like that, because we knew Daredevil was going to come in this series. That's really been the one thing that's kept everyone watching, is when are we going to see Daredevil. But the thing that made me angry was when I saw that, I was so sure that they were so happy to put that one scene on the end that they didn't care about the rest of the episode.
I think the whole thing was all about showing that box. And
Exactly.
what really upset me was the box contained a helmet that personally I found offensive.
It's not offensive.
And
But
the colour was so wrong.
yeah,
It's wrong.
That's each to their own, you know.
No, but
the
that's
suit
not right.
The suit and reinventing Daredevil. I'll say I'm gonna give them the chance. I'm gonna let it play out, and I want to see what it actually looks like on him. If it looks good, then great. If it looks terrible, I'll agree with you. The thing that annoyed me was this is a 20-minute episode. It's a 20 or 21-minute
It's about
episode.
20, 21 minutes.
And they
It's
were
terrible.
so happy that when this episode they were writing this episode, they said, okay, at the end we just need to put Daredevil's helmet and we'll be fine. We can write whatever we want. Doesn't matter how bad it is. People will just get excited for the next episode and watch the next one.
Yeah, but
because now everyone's going to think the next
Daredevil's
episode
gonna
is the Daredevil episode.
Agreed.
Right?
But think about what I said before. I was really, when they said you had to get a costume, I was thinking in terms of, is it
Melvin.
Melvin from Daredevil being involved. And he was a great character. They went through a number of iterations of the suit and the helmet in the Daredevil series, in the first series. And now what? Is this new guy replacing
So this is a very good point.
What the hell?
This is a very good point because you do think, would Matt Murdock, as we love him because he's already established character in a different series, fair enough, it's not the Disney one, but the Matt Murdock that the universe that we currently are in loves, would he have associated with this kind of person?
Not Matt Murdock. Mr. Big, Mr. Kingpin. It was the King. It was by following the Kingpin that he found Melvin.
Yeah.
So,
but what I'm saying is,
would the Kingpin go there and say, right, make me a suit that actually?
No, but what I'm saying is that in this scenario, they're showing that this guy has made a suit for Daredevil, which means Daredevil is associating with him. So would Matt Murdock associate with a guy like Luke, who looks down upon people in the way that he has in this episode?
No,
you'd hope that he doesn't.
Character. Goes against his character. The whole character of Daredevil.
Kingpin may associate with someone like that because he's not seemed to be a nice person. He seemed to be very specific about who he works for, high-end clients, all these sorts of things. And actually, given what they did to Kingpin in the
Hawkeye series, yeah, it's been awful.
We probably think
it's
he
even
could
worse,
work with someone like this.
Yeah, that was really bad.
So, gosh, what an episode! So that was the end of the episode. Was there a post-credit scene? No, there was some post-credits animations, and they literally just gave up. They were doing post-credit scenes before. Now we don't have them, and is that because
and those pictures at the end that they show have no real resemblance to any of the story that's gone through?
They did do a little bit with the pictures. So the comic stuff that they did, there was some sort of Easter eggs in there. So like in the episode, Pug says, "I want to get the Iron Man 3s." In the drawings, he does get the Iron Man 3s. There's one with him celebrating.
Yeah.
And behind him on the shelf, you can see that there's the Iron Man 3s, but there's also like the X-Men shoes, which suggests... I mean, I don't know, because it's hard, because on one end, you're saying, yeah, look, he'd got his Iron Man 3s, be happy for him. But then you're also suggesting that if that is real, that happened, then is the cabinet behind him also real? Because that means that all the X-Men are established.
Well, can I say something about all this sort of stuff? All this Easter egg stuff that we see in so many series like this, where you find YouTuber, and you find it on YouTube. YouTuber after YouTuber seems to be able to find some small thing that says, "Wow, that's an Easter egg." You know what? I don't care about that stuff. I care about the story. I want to be entertained. I don't want to be looking for this sort of stuff.
Yeah, but
and if that is the highlight, what the hell? What am I? What's the point? Just go straight to the credits, end of credit scene, please.
But let's talk about the Easter eggs, because it's important. Because if you're doing Easter eggs like that, you need to be clear with what you're trying to say. Are you saying that Pug, look, let's all be happy because Pug got the Iron Man 3s, which you're saying is real, it happened, right? And then on the back, you've got the shoes, and it's got like a Cyclops shoe, a
Yeah.
Storm shoe, a Jean Grey, whatever it is. There's a Wolverine shoe, I think, on there. And then you're saying, okay, so does that mean that the X-Men in this universe are so famous that they've already got their own shoe lines? Because in which case, why haven't I seen them before when stuff is going down on Earth and no one's helping? Why haven't they shown up?
It's just, I understand what you're saying, but that's not why I'm watching the show.
It's the least of my worries.
It's not why I'm
It's the
watching
least
the
of my
show.
worries. But this is stuff that I would expect a multi-million dollar, it's a multi-million dollar operation, this show. And I would have thought someone would think about this. The whole point, Marvel has been bashed for a while now about the fact that they're not being cohesive with their timelines. They're not understanding the world that they've already built. They spent a lot of effort making this world. And at each step now in phase 4, if someone had asked one extra question, a lot of stuff would have been much better.
But I think those paintings at the end were an afterthought.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were just
The
an
cartoons.
afterthought. It's almost as though the guys putting together the cartoons are actually cleverer than the actual people who are writing the show.
That's what it is. That's literally what it is. They want people to get excited by the last 3 minutes of the episode, but not of the 20 minutes that they actually created.
Yeah, which is just... this show has...
I'm going to cut you off there. Let's do this. Let's quickly finish with this episode, and then we'll talk mid-season. What our thoughts? Where are we at?
Okay, well, so...
Because I know we're going to start talking about the show in general now.
Okay, so episode 5, from a ratings perspective, I was extremely disappointed. Disappointed because it is a slight story that is almost like, in most other series of any type, you would call this extraneous filler. It is that bad. It lends nothing to understanding of the characters. It lends nothing to the actual development of the series. It's just nothing. And that was incredibly disappointing. If you look at all the other episodes, at least there was something. Here, nothing.
This show, and this episode in particular, I wasn't too angry at it, despite all the stuff that I've said. And the reason is because I've lost any interest in this show now.
Yeah, but,
I'd already talked about episode 4, and I already have decided that this show is unredeemable. And I don't even care if they put Daredevil in the next episode. I shouldn't have to watch through 5 of these kind of episodes just to get a bit of Daredevil. Yeah, this is the problem. They have lost me as a viewer. I cannot respect the show because they are writing such bad content.
Well, I think
they are not giving us legitimate timed episodes. They couldn't even write a half-an-hour episode.
That does bug me. I mean, it does bug me that the episodes, when you go to Disney Plus, you see all these episodes, 38 minutes, 37 minutes, and you get like 25. I think it's been going down.
20. It was 20.
I think the episode. I think episode 5 was around 21 minutes of actual series.
And I was watching this episode, and I remember when I was watching it, I was thinking, okay, fine, like some stuff's happened. Good to know that we're halfway through the episode. I'm interested to see what happens next. And then they showed the Daredevil helmet. That was
finished.
End.
I know, it's terrible. It's terrible. I genuinely thought that when they showed the surprise on She-Hulk's face when she's got her costumes, which obviously they haven't shown anybody else, I actually thought there would be 2 or 3 more minutes of action of some kind. And part of me was thinking, okay, I don't like the Daredevil introduction through this crappy coloured helmet. But you know what? That guy that we think is the really bad guy behind the whole thing, who's a super client for the firm.
I don't care about him
but maybe there'd be something coming back out of that. Maybe there'd be something coming, even with Titania saying, I'm going to get back at you. But the way it finished, oh man, was it deflating?
It's
just deflating.
So I'm going to give this episode, let's do a rating out of 10 today.
Oh, we're going to do it out of numbers now.
We're going to do it out of numbers.
It seems unfair because there's only one number I can think of.
What's that, 0? You can't give it a 0.
I can't. Can I not give it a 0?
Is it the worst series I've ever seen?
No, we're talking about the episode. And
the episode. It's not the worst episode I've ever seen. Is it?
I think this was the
It
worst
might be
episode
the
out of
worst
the
episode
five.
I've ever seen. Is it the worst episode you've ever seen of a TV series?
No, of the five. I'm not going to compare it with the other series, but of the five, I think this was the worst episode.
I still think episode 4 was worse because I think it spelled the end of She-Hulk as a credible TV show. So I'm going to give this a 4.
4 out of 10.
It's a 4 out of 10 for me.
That's a 40% plus. I tell you something. If you were taking an exam, and you
I
got
can't give
40%
it a
in the
1.
hard,
I can't give it a 1 or a 2, and I know that 3.
I tell you what, the best way of
worse.
doing it is don't do it out of 10. Mark out 4, where 4 is fantastic.
There's a
1
2.
is really poor. So
It's
you're
a 1
saying
actually. It's a 1.
it's a 1, right? Okay, I
It's
can't
somewhere
say
between a
zero.
1 and a 2.
Well, I would say it's barely getting to the 1 mark. That's how I viewed this episode. I was not happy with it, and we live in a world of expectation. You sit down, you think, okay, all the previous episodes, whatever they are, we believe the writers and Disney are on a path of redemption. They're going to redeem themselves. And then you end up having to watch this particular episode and you just think, blooming hell. Who even thought it was worth having an episode like that? If you actually think about it, cut the episode out. If it's that bad, why bother? Why bother? Don't even bother. Have the episode. Just don't even have the episode. And that really sort of upsets me. They've thrown garbage at us purely, and they didn't have to. They could have just said, "This is not going to be the episode." Instead of having 9 episodes, we now have 8. Yeah. But at least keep it sensible. And if you actually think about it, I'm pretty sure I'll be amazed if anybody other than the critics found this a particularly good episode. And it's just going to hurt the brand. It's going to hurt the series.
Okay, so we've talked about the episode. Let's do the mid-season review.
Okay, mid-season review. Wow.
I'll say my piece.
Yeah.
Then you can say your piece.
Okay.
And then we'll see where we're at. Okay, so She-Hulk mid-season review. My highlights for this show are none. As I've said, you can do this whole show up till now by giving me the last 3 minutes of the first episode, because everyone knows what She-Hulk is. No one cared about the origin story. It was a boring origin story that they chose. Do the last 3 minutes of the first episode, and you can do this episode. And you could probably cut out even the branding part of this episode. It's just her getting her suit. And you can probably just put the creepy guy in trying to stab her in this episode in the 8 minutes that you didn't use. And then you can put a Daredevil helmet at the end. Which to me spells wasted opportunity, poor writing. I don't think the actors did a terrible job. I think the actors are, they've got their hands tied by the writing. I think the animation it's gone from decent to moderate. It's acceptable. I really hope that it gets better, but even if it does, I don't think it redeems the first half of the season. And what do I think they're going to do? I think they are going to hedge all their bets on the Daredevil episode being the best one, which in a funny way means that a man is going to save the series.
Okay. Is that it?
That's all I could think of.
Right. I think there have been 1 or 2 things that I've enjoyed about this series. I think the problem is there are not enough points. There are not enough instances that I've enjoyed. But what I have enjoyed has unfortunately been it's almost every time something happens that I enjoy, it's almost been counterbalanced by stuff that is so rubbish. You wonder what is going on here. I personally, when I think about the 5 episodes and I think about things that I've liked, the scenes with Mark Ruffalo, where they're doing their bits, and the scenes with Tim Roth, where he's doing his bits, I've actually thought, yeah, okay. But they've been counterbalanced by rubbish. Mm. But I like those scenes. Maybe I have a affection for the actors because I know they're great actors, and yes, they're sleepwalking through their roles, but I enjoy those. I actually think the animation around the Hulk character, Mark Ruffalo's character, was much better than it has been for She-Hulk. And maybe that's because the animators have been developing that particular animation for so many years. It's just now they just press a button and they've got a brilliant Hulk. Okay. Abomination. I actually thought of the Abomination when Tim Roth turned into the Abomination character. I thought that was good, but I reckon that's come from the fact that, you know what, it hasn't come from that they've been doing it for years, but they had to get it right for Shang-Chi. Otherwise, Shang-Chi would be even worse. So we just pressed a button to delete a complete character. So that's fine. Those things like, and I will also say that up until probably the last moment, when She-Hulk was attacked by those that group of men and dealt with them, I actually enjoyed that, those part. Okay, I enjoyed it because there hasn't been any real action. You got to have some. I mean, you got a She-Hulk character, a super hero character, and has there been a lot of action? Only really in 2 episodes. One was that. I mean, the 10-year stuff was a bit of a joke, and also with that, it had been in the trailers, and I wasn't really aghast at that. I wasn't really surprised by that. And then there's her having to fight these blooming demons, which I thought was really poor. And the reason I said it was really poor is because she wasn't needed. Wong had already had all the powers to get rid of these things, and she had become an incidental character in her own series. So that fight, it could have been funnier, it could have been better. It didn't leave me saying I want to see that again. But the fight where she was attacked and she turns into She-Hulk and all that kind of stuff by those guys, I thought at least that left questions, and it was fine. I thought that was fine. So those were sort of positives. The negatives, I think the biggest negative is almost the demeaning approach they've taken to Wong. I didn't like that. I didn't like the way Wong has been used in this.
Killing every character we
yeah,
love.
I really did not like it. I'm not saying Wong is my favourite character in the Marvel universe, but why do you got to make him out to be such an idiot? Make him such a, we're not even talking. Yes, bring him down to a more human level if you want to, but down to the basis of saying he's a joke.
The recesses
he's
of
not
humanity.
he's not a joke. No, is it? Why turn him into a joke character? There's no need for it.
He's already established, isn't
It's
he?
just and I thought that was really, really bad. I think there's a real problem with the series doesn't understand. The people behind the series don't seem to understand how to balance the Jen character and the Hulk character. I think the show, the first 4-5 episodes, have shown that they themselves don't get it, and because they don't get it, the writing is just rubbish. It's just rubbish. There's even if you look at the way that even this last episode, where She-Hulk is having to sort of almost make herself out to be separate to Jen in some respects. Okay, they could have the way they could have done it is almost like, right now you've got a dual personality here. Now you've got to deal with, a really complex situation. They could have allowed some adult thinking.
Just like the arc I told you, the
Yeah.
one that I don't have any interest in, where
Yeah.
she says she's perfect at the beginning. That is all of Jen's perfect the whole time.
Yeah,
You just
yeah,
need to look
and
within
it's-
yourself. Even if they did that, I would understand it. But here's the thing. It just occurred to me that the show is called She-Hulk Attorney at Law, and we're on episode 5, and we haven't seen her win a single court case yet.
Yeah.
Because the jury...
Yeah, she has a- yeah,
there
she
was
has-
a mistrial in the first episode.
Yeah.
The second episode, there was no courtroom. It was all done in the jail.
Yeah, it was actually a parole
Third
parole thing.
episode was... Actually, sorry, second episode was her just getting a job. Third episode, everything was done in the jail. Fourth episode, she settled out of court by intimidating the
exactly.
yeah,
It's just
the
pathetic. It is poor, but the thing about this, and they always change the title, Attorney of Law or whatever. They've been messing around with the title, which again I think is demonstrating that they are struggling to actually understand what it is that they're trying to write. It's almost as though they're trying. I don't know the comic books. Maybe the comics are like this, but are the how could the comic books be that bad and
They're
be
not
successful?
they're not this bad. They're not this
Okay,
bad.
so that's so to me, as a mid-season review, very, very disappointed. Am I looking forward to the next episode? To be honest, I'm not. No, Daredevil, if he turns up, I'm kind of worried. How will
This is the
Daredevil
thing.
Daredevil be portrayed?
They've got us living in perpetual fear that they're going to ruin one of the most loved characters in the
I
whole
know.
Marvel universe.
And Daredevil is brilliant. I mean, and I'll give
yeah.
you the example of how brilliant the Netflix version of Daredevil was absolutely outstanding. That series is truly one of the great comic book to live action adventures that has happened on television. It's absolutely fantastic. And Daredevil as a character has always been a really super cool character.
Loved character by lots of people.
And
they did it justice.
Yeah, and it does make you wonder. And when I think about Spider-Man No Way Home, when Matt Murdock turns up out of the blue, in those few seconds
People
that he's
screaming
on
in the cinema.
it wasn't just that they were screaming at cinema, they loved the way that scene was done. That scene was done really, really well. Are these people up to it?
No.
Maybe. I don't
No,
know.
they're not.
I think they're going to have to be on a...
They are hoping...
They have to redeem themselves big time with the next episode to me to be excited about.
They are
the next
hoping that Daredevil
4
saves
episodes.
the whole series. All they've been writing on from the start is they knew that Daredevil was going to be in this, and they just got complacent and said, fine, we can write whatever we want. People will watch it anyway because they want to see Daredevil. I bet you they tease Daredevil in this episode, and actually, he ends up being the season finale.
Quite possible.
And I want him to be the next episode so bad because now they've shown it, that there's a natural transition. You can clearly bring this character in now.
Yeah.
But I bet you that they have, with the lazy writing we've seen already, it's almost certain that he's going to be a season finale or something of that ilk.
Yeah.
So,
and the worst thing, and I've been going. I mean, I didn't really enjoy the trailers for She-Hulk when they first came out, and I've seen some of those trailers again just to sort of have a look at them, and I don't know. I don't understand how. I mean, there are things in the trailers. We're more than halfway through the series now,
still haven't seen
and we
them.
still haven't seen some of that stuff. And what the hell's going on there?
That's why I think he's at the end.
It's just really bad.
Because I think they're trying to put all this cool stuff that they're going to do to try and get a season 2. God forbid they get a season 2. They probably will get a season 2. Or she'll get her own movie.
They can do anything they want.
Imagine if she gets her own movie.
Sure, but look, she's going to end up being she'll end up having bit parts in films and other series and all the rest of it. The way I look at it is, we're more than halfway through the series with episode 5, and the trailers are telling me more than what I've seen, and that to me is there is something seriously wrong with the way these guys are thinking, and what are they thinking in terms of who the audience is? I think they think we're a bunch of idiots. And I think they're treating us like a bunch of idiots.
Yeah.
And this episode in particular was exactly that type of episode. It's one with the previous episodes. I didn't feel that they were trying to say, "Look, you're an idiot. This is what you would enjoy." This is the first time with episode 5 that I genuinely thought they actually think I'm an idiot because they think I'm enjoying this. And that's
what it is.
It was really poor.
So let's do this. Let's do a mid-season rating. We're gonna do
my god! I've just rated the
from
thing of
A
1 out of
plus.
4.
We're gonna do from A plus to whatever letter you want.
No, you can't do to whatever letter you want.
Whatever letter you want. It's a grading system, so you can't go down to Z or a Y
I
or
think
whatever it
if you're going to grade this,
I'm going to give it a C minus.
I'm going no. As high as that?
It's a C minus. For
No
me.
way. It's not that good. No, I think the better way to rate it, and I would struggle to rate it even as a D at the moment. Okay, really struggle. But I think the way to, because I really hope they're going to redeem themselves with the next 3 episodes. It's only 4 episodes left. Sorry, 4 episodes. I hope they're going to redeem themselves and come out with something really quite cool. So I'd like to rate this alongside other. Now, how would you view with other series? Now, obviously, if we start picking out series from other platforms, we're going to end up saying this is rubbish because the other platforms have done so much good work. So if I compare it with Hawkeye, which was the previous series that I saw, I think where She-Hulk is well below where Hawkeye was when it at its midpoint.
Of course.
It's a lot lower.
There's,
And I wasn't exactly a fan of Hawkeye. I thought it had some, it wasn't horrible. It wasn't brilliant, but this is below that.
Hawkeye had, to give it some credit, Hawkeye had some interesting characters. I have not got any interest in any of the characters in this series.
Yeah.
Hawkeye, at least I was interested in what Hawkeye was doing with his hearing aids and this new girl.
I mean, you can't compare. I mean, is it Jeff Barton or whatever his name is? The Hawkeye character is so superior in the way. So maybe that's not really a fair. Maybe I'm raising the bar too high. Loki.
Clint Barton.
Clint Barton. That's right. Loki as a series in comparison to this halfway.
This is the worst Marvel series. I'll say it again. This is the worst Marvel series.
You know what? I actually agree with you, but I can't admit that because I haven't seen Miss Marvel. This series is so
the worst
bad.
Marvel series.
So that I've seen. Anyway.
This is the worst Marvel series.
Yeah, that
I've said it 4 times in a row now.
Yeah.
This is the worst Marvel series.
Can it get better? Please, let the answer
Just
be
give
yes.
us the Daredevil episode and I'll stop watching. Just give us the Daredevil episode and I'll tell you that you had one decent episode which I liked.
I reckon we talk about Daredevil. Now Daredevil appears in the trailers. Okay.
Of course, because they want people to watch a show.
And
no one would watch it.
If I remember correctly, it's on on top of a building and all the rest of it. But the part of me is thinking they're going to pull an ace out of the hole by having another big character appear. We didn't expect Abomination as a villain, or who's now supposedly not a villain. It would not surprise me, and I would really like to see a surprise, well-loved Marvel hero also appear, and it shouldn't be the Hulk or Bruce Banner coming in to collect his paycheck at the end because he just got paid. He got out of the.
I
7
honestly don't know
episodes.
what they're going to do. I don't think they'll do it well, even if they do try, because there's no evidence to suggest they've done anything well in this show so far with the writing. I think they'll have the Daredevil episode and people will get excited because it's Daredevil. So for one episode, everyone will say, "Oh, look, they did a good episode," and then at the end, we'll probably see some sort of weird thing where someone manages to get her blood because they've been trying to do it for 4 episodes, and then they make a new Hulk, and it's going to be. Remember the previous Hulk movie? Remember when they made another Hulk?
Yeah.
And it seems to be that in every Hulk movie they're trying to make another Hulk.
Yes.
So they're going to make the same mistake. They're going to make another Hulk before they've explored the character, and they're going to try and tease a season 2 where it's a Hulk versus a Hulk.
Possibly. I mean, I just hope.
Let's stop there.
I hope they do.
I'm getting angry thinking about what they're going to do.
Yeah, I know.
Let's stop there. So we didn't like this episode.
No, it's very poor.
I think we've established that. We're not fans of the series so far. Are we willing to give it a chance?
There's a very interesting thing I've noticed on Rotten Tomatoes, which you see critics' ratings alongside the audience ratings, and the critics who rate this a great show really should spank themselves because it is obviously not anything like what they think it is, and they're trying to sell a really.
They're snake oil salesmen.
Yeah, they are. It is really poor. I mean, the critics should be ashamed of themselves. But one of the things I've noticed, which actually surprised me, and that's why. And I looked at the critics' ratings prior to actually looking at this particular episode. I have noticed that the audience ratings have been going down. I believe they've been going down the more episodes that have been coming out, and that I've never seen that before. So I think
House of Dragon is out. We've got
but I haven't
Andor coming. We've got great things on the horizon, hopefully.
Yeah, but I'm just highlighting the fact that here we have a series which we're saying should be building up to a climax, and the audience view of it is actually on a downward trend.
It's just dead in the water.
And that's not good. It's not good. we are not the only ones who do not like this show, and it's
Yeah, that's yeah, absolutely. So we've kind of summed up what we're gonna say. I think we'll leave it there for today. We're not massive fans of the show. Far be it from fans. We're just hoping that they don't destroy our expectations even more than they already
even
have.
further. Yeah.
So I'm gonna leave it there, guys. Thank you for listening. Anyone who's still listening, this has been the House of Commentary. If you like what we're doing, like, comment, subscribe. We've got more on the way, and hope you all keeping well and safe. Bye.
Yeah. Bye.